Hi, everyone. I'm Coach Lee with Action Coach Business Coaching. I'd like to welcome you to the Business Spotlight. My guest today is David Sasson, and David Sasson is the owner of overstockart.com. And welcome to the podcast today, David.
Hi, Lee. Thank you very much for having me. It's exciting to do this.
Thank you. You're very welcome. Well, I'm excited to interview you, and I didn't let people know you also have a couple of other companies I'm going to ask you about as well. But why don't you, for now, tell us about Overstock Art, how long you've been doing it, and tell people about Overstock Art, because it's a pretty cool company.
Sure, absolutely. So we started overstockart.com in 2001. So in the world of internet, we're like the granddaddy. We're an old company now, which brings a lot of advantages. Our site has a lot of history. We have a lot of customers, a lot of users. A lot of things that are really, really tough to do today was easier to do back then. That's usually the case. When we started, people were using dial-up modems and those kind of things. And obviously today it's completely different. Our we are most known for what we started with. Our bread and butter product is a hand painted oil painting. It's a reproduction of a famous masterpiece, like a Monet or a Van Gogh or Renoir. And these are really cool pieces that people can own. That they don't cost that much, and it's pieces that normally you would see in a museum. They are hand replicated by artists, and that's what kind of worked for us. That's what we became known for. We obviously do all the framing and all that kind of work in our facility here in Wichita, Kansas. We also have a line of canvas prints, and we've added a few other kind of handcrafted home decor items that fits with our brand.
Okay. One of the things that you do, I think, is so cool is you sell the hand painted ornaments.
Yeah, that's true.
And I know there are other companies that have hand painted ornaments now. I think you guys are pretty early on that. And you also use the masterpiece. You keep it in that masterpiece genre on your ornaments, right?
Yeah, so all of our ornaments, they're hand painted. The artists use a bamboo brush that's curved. So they paint the ornament from the inside. It's a really cool art. I think it's only done it's very traditional to China. But what we've done is we created the ornaments in art by Van Gogh and Monet, the same famous art that we sell as paintings. Of course, not the same variety, and because it's round, it is not exactly the same kind of replication. You have to handle these types of things, but also the artist is painting in reverse, so it's a much more difficult task.
Yeah.
A very, very cool product. And we've been selling it now for quite a few years. And yes, there's definite competition, but there is very, very little, to my knowledge, very little, if any, competition with the kind of higher end, the replication of the masterpieces.
Yeah, they're beautiful. I actually bought them for clients and gave them as gifts, and you package them in a beautiful velvet box, and it makes a really nice presentation. And I mean, even though it's an original piece, no one has one just like it. Just like all your paintings, they're hand painted masterpieces, copies. I mean, but they're hand painted. There's nothing.
Yeah.
That's just so fascinating about that. And then also, so if I wanted to go and if I went to Overstock Art, I'd be able to pick the size of the painting, and I could pick any kind of frame.
Yeah, so we have 50 or 60 different framing options, depending on the size that you select of the painting. You can select whatever frame you want. If you didn't like the sizes we offer, you can select it as a separate size, and then we will custom make it for you. We do that as well.
All right.
So there's kind of lots of ways to do this. It's a really fun product. We have customers that have bought 20, 30 pieces. I've communicated with customers that said to me, the only problem I have is that your product is so high quality, I can't see any reason to replace the ones I already have. And my walls are full of your art. We had a customer say it's like walking in a museum. It's really cool to read some of the reviews and stuff.
Yeah. You guys do create museum quality product. There's no question about it. Yeah, that's a nice.
Thank you.
Here. Yeah. So what's been the biggest learning curve? You mentioned that you started out in the modem, which I think is almost kind of forgot about that. But what's been the biggest learning curve in the industry for you?
So I kind of look at it in two ways. So the art industry, I knew nothing about art. I mean, honestly, I have some people tell me, I really only know a couple of Van Gogh pieces and a couple of Monet pieces. I don't know anything else. I'm like, I knew less. I didn't know any of it. And so the first part is kind of learning the art industry. Which artists are interesting to people? What style Van Gogh painted? What is an impressionist artist? Because
Right.
all these things are important as you present your product to the world. The second thing is the online commerce or the internet in itself. Technology changes all the time, and things that work one time don't work in another time. And I mean, just a quick example: we just upgraded the server that we use to run our website,
Mm-hmm.
and some of our customers could not get to the product pages on our website, and we couldn't find it because we could get to them.
Oh,
And it's a problem of propagation through the internet. So it's even now, 24 years later, we're still learning because the industry is changing so much. There's so many complexities with it. um, we communicated with customers, and that's how we got the feedback from them, and that's how we were able to solve everything.
mm-hmm.
It is really challenging from that standpoint. The challenge is kind of what makes it exciting too. So
Right.
you live and you learn.
And you are in you're an e-commerce company, but you're really a technology company almost. And in fact, you mentioned, and I'll just ask you about it now, you have another company that you have developed a product for your own business that now you may be trying to market outside. You might want to talk about that a little bit, and how that came about just to serve a need in your own business, which is, I think, pretty fascinating in itself.
Certainly. So the new company we're working on is called the Communicator Base, and the product is a supply chain software. And the reason we termed it the Communicator Base is that the big innovation, so to speak, initially of the software is that it's a place to communicate with your vendors directly. Well, the entire company, theirs and yours, can see the communication so that it aids in communication throughout the organization too.
Hmm.
There's a lot of other pieces to it, but the reason we started it is because we had a problem communicating with our international vendors. We have studios in China and Vietnam, and there were a lot of issues with creating orders and sending orders, and which part of the order is filled and which part is not.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because our product is hand painted and because our product is so visual, all those pieces were so important, and we could never keep track of it. And so, we started with kind of a bare bone item. I don't remember when it started, but it was close to 20 years ago, is when we initially launched the first version. And we iterated and iterated and improved the software. And today, by embedding some artificial intelligence, some machine learning into the product, we feel that we got such a robust product that it gives us competitive advantage in our world. But we were talking, and like, you know what, this is an opportunity to launch this thing, because there is so much need for small to medium sized companies. The really large companies have great solutions,
Sure.
and the solutions are so involved. Our product really could not handle. But medium-sized wholesalers, retailers, distributors, there's just a lot of them are using Excel,
Mm-hmm.
and really Excel and Outlook is the competition, because they're calculating in Excel in very rudimentary ways how much to order, and then they importing it into their ERP just to send an order. While we can calculate everything for them, create it so fast, send it to their customers. It's like, I used to take a day to just place orders. Now I could do my orders in 5 minutes. It
Wow.
it is it is so efficient the way it works, and not only is it faster, it's a lot better. And
Mhm.
and the data is sitting there, and it calculates. It looks at variability. It looks at the demand. It looks at so many parameters that you could not create a model like this, or you can try, you can come close to creating these kind of models on a spreadsheet, but it'd be so hard to do. And here it's just spitting them out. So it's really incredible.
And I know that Amazon is sort of, set the expectation that we click a button and we get something instantly. And
Yeah.
we've all had to respond to that, haven't we? And this is helping someone that would never be able to have the resources of an Amazon or a Walmart or any of those kinds of companies, but still be able to play on their level with this product, basically what you're saying. That's
To
pretty
some degree,
amazing.
to some degree. So for a consumer, you need your, I don't know, your protein powder, and so you order it from Amazon and you expect it to be here tomorrow. If you're a distributor of protein powder, you're not going to hold one. You're going to hold,
Right.
let's say it takes 2 weeks to get it. So how much do you need of that product? That calculation, what people do is they say, okay, let's say I have a week. In a normal week, on the average week, I sell 10. So I'm going to hold 10. So if you just hold 10, then any week where you beat your average, so any of those good weeks, you won't be able to fulfill the demand. So now you're losing money because you don't have the product. So people say, well, I just hold double. Okay, so now you're holding 20. But let's say that you never sell 20. So now you're holding too much, which means you don't have enough cash. And so we create the balance by calculating what is the optimal size of your bin. And that's how many you should hold. You should refill your bin all the time.
Okay.
We're using some of the theory of constraints logic together with machine learning calculations.
Okay. So you're using AI and you're using real science. I mean, they're both real, but
yeah.
real numbers, if you will. Okay, that's fascinating. I love it. So what do you think the industry that you're in? You could say you're in the retail industry, you could say you're in the technology industry, but what do most people misunderstand about overstockart.com?
Well, I think that almost always what we run into is that people say, so your prints look lovely. And we're like, yeah, they're not prints. They're hand painted oils. And I met one time, I flew to Las Vegas and I met with a buyer from Wayfair.com. Wayfair is one of our largest kind of channel partners. And we're sitting with them, and I remember she's telling, and we're saying, okay, we want to grow the business with you guys. What do we need to do? And she said, well, I'm looking at your canvas prints, and I compare them to other canvas prints, and they're more expensive. And I told her, well, ours are oil paintings. These are canvas prints. That's a big difference. And at the time, her category was selling, hundreds of these paintings a week, and she doesn't know it's paintings. And so educating people that these are hand painted oil paintings is probably the biggest thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you've told us a few more people today about that. So interesting. So, and you're definitely an entrepreneur, and you've made it through a lot of, the good and the bad and the ugly and everything, COVID and all that other. And you have the second business that you're building, and then I'm also going to ask you about your K7 business, which is a K7wear.com, which is a special line of clothing that you're also. So you're an entrepreneur. There's no question about that. And my definition of an entrepreneur is somebody who has more than one business, because that's usually what it is. What's the hardest part about being an entrepreneur to you?
I think the hardest part, there's two stages to it, maybe three. The first part is to start it, to get it, to move forward with it, because for most people, the biggest hurdle is, I don't really trust myself to be able to do this. I'm looking at the odds and I don't think I can. These kind of things, that is to really step out of your bubble and to say, I remember talking to a gentleman one time, and he said, I kind of like to pursue my own business, but the only way I would do it is if I knew 100% that it will be successful. And I'm like, well, then you're just not going to do it. I'm like, it's okay. I'm not pushing you to do it, but this will never happen, because you never know the future. And he had a good idea, and I don't know if he pursued it or not. But to me, it's like that's their first hurdle. Most people don't go past that, and that's the first thing. The second thing is entrepreneurs that get their business off the ground. It's typically because they have a propensity for action. They see something, they get it done. They see something, they get it done.
Yeah.
Well, as your business scales a little bit, you have to know that that does not scale. You have to start being more patient. You have to start coaching other people. You have to start learning how to say, it's too big for me to just see something and get it done. Because while I'm getting this X done, there is Y, which has 10 times more value, but it will take a lot longer that I'm not getting done. And that I use I call it thinking time. Take time to think,
Yes.
and it's so hard to do, and honestly, hard for me too.
Uh-huh.
I preach it, and sometimes I don't practice. So I think that that's a big hurdle for a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs, because it's not in your blood to just sit there. It's in your blood to get stuff done. And then the last hurdle, the last thing that's really hard is your business. My history, and I think most people, is that success is not linear. I didn't like start the business and the next day sold double and then double and then double, and it always grew. We had growth and then shrinkage and then growth, and it's like it's always been like that, and it's like that for most. And so as you're hitting those troughs, those bottoms, do you have the perseverance, the strength, the energy, the confidence to push through and say, we got it, we got to push through it, we're going to blast through this difficulty and find our home, find our North Star,
Mm.
and get it done. And I think that that's another area where some just, they just quit right before they hit gold, kind of a thing. And
Yeah.
so
3 feet from gold.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's a great, I love the 1, 2, and the 3, getting started. And then I wrote this down. If you do all the work, you won't get all the work done. It's not possible. So you have to delegate and let it go and let people learn and make
Yeah,
mistakes. And then,
yeah,
as you said, not linear. That's right too. No business is like that. And
yeah.
it would make sense at a time. Okay. So what's your favorite part about being an entrepreneur?
I think I think a great thing about it is that you have it's not full control of the situation because there's lots of things that play a role. But a lot of employees, let's say you're an employee of a big company, you're like, we're really doing it in a terrible way. And then you go and you keep on doing it. And that would frustrate me to no end. And as an entrepreneur, you could say, we're not doing it the right way. Let's sit down and think of a better way to do it. I don't have to just go through the monotony of doing it the wrong way just because somebody 17 levels above me thought that's the right way. And so I think that's like a huge thing because it's kind of like controlling your destiny. And you truly don't ever completely control because luck plays a role. There's events that play a role.
Sure.
You mentioned in COVID and this and that. Obviously, they change your world, but you control them to a greater degree. And you have some more freedom than others because, well, an employee trades his time for money, you trade your productivity for money. So where you're productive, when you're productive is not as important as having to punch a clock 9 to 5.
Well
And
said.
so I think those are things I really like. And I don't know if I could go work for somebody else. I'm an old man now too, but
I don't think so. I think about that too. Oof. I don't know if I would want to continue to find a better way. And they don't,
yeah,
you know, not necessarily going to happen at an employer either. So
yeah, yeah.
the other secret I like to let people in on about successful entrepreneurs is telling them how they start their day. So how do you do that? Do you have rituals around your start?
I guess so. I get up every morning 5:40. I don't snooze. I just get out of bed.
Okay.
And um, I force myself to do it. It's not easy for me. I don't think it's easy for anybody, but definitely not for me. I get up, I work out for an hour and a half. During summer, I usually walk my dog too. Um, but that's kind of like the first part of my morning, very active. After that, I eat breakfast, and then I do some work from home, more kind of like easier stuff that I could do, some communication, things like that. And I usually don't get into the office until around 10 a.m. I sometimes, when I say get in the office, sometimes my office at home, and sometimes it's my
Uh-huh.
office here in the company.
Okay.
That's
I like that. I mean, you absolutely know what you get up at 5:40 and you don't hit snooze. That's a pretty darn clear routine for starting.
yeah. It's a rule that I made just not so long ago, and I just don't hit snooze no
Uh,
matter what. If I couldn't sleep all night long, doesn't matter. It rings,
yeah.
you're up, the day
Ooh,
starts.
I love it. And so common for successful people to have that same tendency to set a rule like that for themselves and follow it. Yeah.
There is something called the marshmallow test. Have you heard of it?
Yes.
Yeah,
I
it's pretty famous. It's pretty
yes, it is.
famous. And to me, it's a little bit like the marshmallow test.
Yeah,
Do you do it or not? And of course, the marshmallow test is in reverse, but I always think it's kind of similar.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, the marshmallow test, someone can just Google it, but yeah, they can you wait to eat the marshmallow and get more? Or do you
yeah,
just eat it? Yeah, it's a cool example. So
yeah.
how do you get inspired? What makes you feel inspired?
I think that I like to build a great company. I'd like to build something awesome, and that really probably is what inspires me more than anything else. Like that, what motivates me. How do you build a great brand? How do you build a great software? I think that inspires.
Ah, yeah,
Um,
that's cool. And you really have to keep the eye on the ball. You talked a little bit earlier about hard to get started. It's also not listening to the naysayers because boy, they mean
yeah,
well, don't they?
yeah, no, for sure, and that's why I was saying, people look at the odds. I didn't know the odds. People say that 90% of businesses fail in the first year. I didn't know that. And the statistic is only 1% makes it past the 10th year or something like that.
Yeah, they're
I
pretty
didn't
pretty
know
high.
that either.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Good,
so,
good thing you didn't know.
yeah, if you spend so much time researching, if you're doing all this, then it discourages you because people, the naysayers, are not people that want to harm you. It's typically your parents and your
Yes.
family, and they're watching out for you. But how do you overcome? When I was in college, I had a straight commission job. So I got paid when I sold. If I didn't sell, I didn't eat, so to speak. And I remember after a couple of years of doing it, I was talking to my father, who was a very risk averse person. And we were talking about another job that I could take. And he said, "Well, are you going to make more than what you're making now?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know, not for sure. Some of my better years, like, then why take it?" I'm like, "Because what I'm doing now, we don't know if I'll get paid at all." It's like, "But we do know now. We know you get paid because we know it's going to work for you because it has been." And so once I convinced him, once he saw it, he's like, "Okay, that's okay. That works." But at the beginning, he didn't want anything to do with it,
Yeah.
and that's just how people are. That's uncertain. Why should and so
Yeah.
I don't know. Everything is uncertain because we don't know the future. That's the reality of the world.
Yeah. I think too, the security squashes the inspiration,
Yeah, yeah,
and the inspiration has to continue. You have to keep re-inspiring yourself with
yeah,
things and people and products and nothing to inspire you like starting another business. The
yeah,
things you can learn from the
yeah.
other. So I know you're a big reader. You've recommended some books to me over the years, and I've read several of them. And the book you recommended to me, and now I can't think about it. So
The goal.
yes, The Goal. I have
Yeah.
recommended that to so many people. I have two copies of it now in my office, and one's always on loan. It's
That's
such a
awesome.
great book. Yeah. What's
Yeah.
your favorite business book if you have one, and why is it your favorite?
I'm going to be boring. I think it is the goal.
It's
I
not boring.
I read a lot, and I read some books more than once. The goal I've read a few times.
Hmm.
I just haven't found a book that I liked more. Um, I like the theory of constraints a lot.
Uh-huh.
The idea of the book of the theory of constraints is that you identify the constraint and then you put all of your energies towards solving the constraint. And it is so common, and honestly, I still do it, and everybody probably still do it. The simplest way to kind of explain the theory of constraint is to look at a very simple process. And when you show people that really simple, this is your constraint, then it's very clear for people. Then I should really invest all my effort in solving that. But in life, there is a lot of moving parts, and it's hard to identify. Well, once you identify, if you put all of your energies to solve that, then everything else will fall into place. And that is the concept that really resonates with me. And to me, we are always going to have limited resources. I don't care if you're the largest company in the world or the smallest company in the world, there's a limitation of resources. And so being able to invest them where they're needed the most. So I really look at it as I love the book because it's a real primer into the theory of constraints, and I think it's the best way to look at how to run a business. And so,
Every time I see a traffic jam, I think of that book because I know there's a problem and it probably happens every time at that same time of the day,
yeah,
that constraint. And until that's addressed, it's going to be a problem. It's
yeah,
interesting. I think they give an example of that in the book too, about that. That's a good example of, you got to figure that
yeah,
what that is.
yeah,
It's causing this whole thing.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, the goal. That's awesome. So when it's all said and done, what do you want people to remember most about you?
Hmm.
I know those are legacy
I'm,
questions, right?
I'm not sure I want to be remembered at all. I think it's really simple. I think I just want people to remember that I was a good person, and everything else is not important. At the end of the day, if people look back and say, he took care of his family, he was a good person, he took care of me, and that would be enough for me.
That would be pretty cool, wouldn't it? And I will say I've done quite a few of these interviews now, maybe 60, around 60. I hear that a lot. I want to
Yeah,
be remembered as a good person in,
yeah,
across the board, family, work, and
yeah.
that's a pretty good thing. So I like that. Thank you. Well, last question, how can people find you, David? And do you want to just talk real quickly, briefly about your K7ware.com company?
Yeah, so K7ware, we started with a partnership with some friends from Israel. I'm originally from Israel. And we're bringing these heated jackets. So it's a jacket that has a heated element. We're in the process of starting to bring some other products like gloves and things like that. So if you're sitting in a football game watching the Chiefs play in the
Below freezing,
when it's
super low.
below freezing, when it's really really cold, and I think it was the wild card game that they were in.
Yeah.
Um, then you have a battery. It's a heated element, and it heats you up from inside. It feels really good. I was not at the game. I was at a volleyball tournament in Kansas City at the same time.
Oh, okay. Cold.
but it's cool products. It's interesting prices too, so
Okay.
people could enjoy it if they're in the market for it. And we're going to bring a lot of new designs and things like that real soon. So it's going to be very exciting stuff.
Cool. And that's letter K, number 7, where, WEAR,
Yeah,
K7.com. Okay, good.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so how can people find you if they want to know more about any of these businesses or just to know about you personally?
So LinkedIn is a great place to find me. Overstockart.com. Obviously, they can find me indirectly, so to speak. They can come see the company, see what we're offering. Reach out through there. They could email me directly if somebody has any questions. David@overstockart.com,
Okay.
and be happy to answer questions or anything of that nature.
Okay. Well, thank you. I've learned a lot about you today. It was great seeing you again, and I had a pleasure interviewing. It was fun. Thank you very much, David.
Thanks, Leah. I had a blast. Thank you very
Thanks.
much. Good to see you again.
Thank you. I'm Coach Lee with Action Coach Business Coaching, and this is the Business Spotlight. And I have just interviewed the president of Overstockart.com, and his name is David Sasson. Have a great day, David.
Yes, you too, Lee. Thank you very much.